I would now like to ask Kobi Huberman to take the panel and take the floor. Kobi is the CEO of Strategic Landscapes since 2007, the author and co-founder of the Israeli Peace Initiative Group and the co-chairman of the Empathy Group. His major effort today is to promote new ideas for regional peace settlement in the Middle East. He has co-authored the proposal for an Israeli peace initiative together with Yuval Rabin and formed the IPI group. Kobi, I would like to ask you also a question. You emphasize in your work the need for a regional approach for a two-state solution based on the parameters of the Arab Peace Initiative of 2002. On your webpage, you are saying that, and the quote starts here, that despite the dynamics on the ground in the West Bank, there's still a 3 to 5 years window to finalize the implementation of a two-state solution, provided that a true diplomatic process starts no later than early 2013. Otherwise, we are concerned by the de facto creation of a one-state solution. End of the quote. We are now at the end of 2016, and the 3 to 5 years window you foresaw at that time is closing. Is the time for a two-state solution really running out, or is there still hope for a solution? Please.
Okay, אני ברשותכם אדבר באנגלית, and I'll present some new paradigms for what I hope could be used as a recipe for breakthroughs. The IPI group, Israel Yozemet, is a non-political group that's trying to promote new thinking. It first came with an Israeli proposal for a response to the Arab Peace Initiative. It believes that the chaos in the region is an opportunity, that the status quo is dangerous, that it is time to move from bilateral to regional talks, and we'll explain this more. It is time to change the model of the international, or the role of the international community, from mediators to enablers. And we believe that the API and an IPI response are the core of a regional package deal, which we'll describe. And it is time to converge some regional, bilateral, and unilateral models into a comprehensive package. What drives us, and I'm not going to go into any ideological arguments, what drives us is that a regional package deal that will form two nation states for two people and will include regional security and regional economic agreements for the development of the Middle East are perhaps the only way to ensure Israel's Jewish majority, true security, true prosperity, and above all, a new geostrategic position in the region. We think that there is a need to change the target and to understand that it will enable a whole new paradigm for a stronger Israel in the region. What are the drivers for the regional approach? Well, Yehuda Glick has a major problem because only 8% of the Israelis, according to our polls, are in favor of a one-state solution. They are afraid of a binational state, but they don't believe the Palestinians. On the other hand, Israelis, according to our polls, consistently prefer a regional package deal over and compared to the traditional bilateral one. That is consistent in the past 3 years and has now reached somewhat between 70 to 75% consistently. The US and the international community...
There's only one poll that doesn't work, and that's the elections.
That was not the question of the election. Please don't interrupt me. I didn't interrupt you. The international community efforts are at bay. However, there is a new axis emerging, the CCBB axis, and there is rapprochement between Israel, Saudi Arabia, and Gulf players because of shared interest. Let us just take a 10 seconds look at the map of the Middle East and the shared risks to Israel and some of the moderate Arab states, and the economic threats of perhaps a ticking bomb of having about 100 million unemployed, frustrated youth in the next 15 to 20 years. That is the driver to change the scope of our thinking about why we need the two-state solution and who we can drive this two-state solution with. But there are also inhibitors, and these are uncertainty and to a large extent, lack of innovation. The phrase back to the negotiation table is over. It's a big mistake. And the idea that we can go through a one quantum leap to a final status agreement without transitional steps is another illusion. We have issues with the Palestinian leadership. We have issues with the Israeli leadership. We have lack of clarity with respect to the US administration, and the regional agenda doesn't have the two-state solution or the Palestinian problem as high as it was in the past because there are other higher priority issues. Furthermore, some of the regional stakeholders are facing true eco-political challenges. With all that, we think that there are still 12 to 18 month window of opportunity to develop new paradigms because we think that new momentum will start either towards the end of 2017 or in 2018, and we are optimistic about that. Why is the bilateral process failing? And why can't we just go to the negotiation table? Yes, one could say, look, it never succeeded, and therefore we need to think about doing something else. But I'd like to claim that there are some fundamental problems that must be addressed. Here is the way Israelis see a bilateral deal with all the known parameters that have been discussed and documented as we've heard before. Still, what Israel receives in return for huge concessions and huge risks it needs to take for the well-known parameters of the two-state solution is totally unacceptable in terms of the risks, and it cannot be sold neither to the Israeli public or the Israeli political forces. However, if we look at a different paradigm, the Arab states can provide Israel with the balancing elements and strategic benefits in security and economic cooperation, and then the deal is looking more balanced. In a truly mirroring manner, take a look at the Palestinian view. We think that what we give in a two-state solution is huge. However, Palestinians see huge risk in giving up their dreams for self-determination and fulfilling their national dreams and their national ethos. Here again, a bilateral deal with Israel will not flow, even if all the parameters are clear. Here we need to see the legitimacy and the support coming from the Arab state on several issues, on Jerusalem refugees and definitely state building, and then a comprehensive approach could look more favorable and more acceptable to the Palestinians. Converging these two views, if you have two parties that will not accept, because there's no zone of possible agreement on the parameters as such, the Arab quartet involvement is key in order to help the parties. And that is the first time when the real honest broker or honest player or significant contributor role is no longer just in the hands of the international community. It's also a very important responsibility of key Arab states. So how do we take that? Back in 2014, the IPI group, Blue White Future, and later on with key players in the Palestinian Authority, we looked at a model which will bring us to a two-state solution in a regional package deal, which will be based on a response of Israel to the Arab Peace Initiative, negotiated terms of reference, and some pre-negotiations constructive steps. We've outlined the model. and we said we need to have regional elements and regional agreements and regional negotiations. We need to have permanent status agreements, and we need to implement on the ground whatever is agreed that can be implemented in order to avoid the failure that Yair Hirschfeld highlighted before. This is a clear path if you believe that everything works along the green track. Over the years, we have found out that if we want to reach the regional package deal as two-state solution, permanent status agreement, and end of conflict, we must use the regional framework in the following way. On the onset, we need to set the 3 tracks, but we need to accept that we won't jump in one go to the final status agreement, but we can achieve a lot in making progress, provided that the final status terms of reference have been agreed as we started the process. And that is why negotiated terms of reference are a key fundamental element in this whole architecture. As we make progress, we can see more progress on the regional levels. There are many issues where Israel and the regional players can work together and make progress regardless of the Palestinian issues. And we can see more progress on state building. Furthermore, we believe that once the borders and border security is agreed, we can move to a major development which will be an incubation state milestone, which will, among other things, include a recognition of Palestine as a state in provisional borders, but with a definition of the final borders to be achieved. We believe that later on, as negotiations between 2 states, some of the more difficult core issues will be concluded, and eventually we believe that this process can be packaged in a timetable that shall be agreed between Israel and the Palestinians. But we also need to recognize the complexity of this process, realizing that there could be failures. And therefore, we need to realize that while we are trying to make progress in this way, failure points might bring what I would call fallback positions that will require unilateral and sometimes coordinated unilateral withdrawals in order to maintain the 2-state solution as a viable one for the future. And therefore, we need to weave in this model a breakthrough at the beginning based on a regional approach and the recognition of terms of reference that will be reflecting an Arab peace initiative and Israeli peace initiative, the need to develop several routes in parallel, but also the realization that there will be transitions and there will be, unfortunately, if we fail, we will have to stop the process. But unlike traditional unilateral steps, and unlike what was done in Gaza, this time it will be coordinated, and more importantly, we will not change the end game target and the horizon going forward. So the new regional paradigm is first and foremost about building a horizon in terms of reference that include the Arab Peace Initiative and the Israeli Peace Initiative. And of course, these will have to look at the realities, and there will be a compromise. We are working on a model like this with Palestinians and regional players, and we begin to see the formation of a potential terms of reference along these lines. We will have to converge regional efforts, bilateral efforts, and unfortunately, if necessary, unilateral ones. If we want to reach a comprehensive approach where Israelis know what they will be receiving from the Arab states, and so will the Palestinians, we will have to accept the concept of parallel negotiations, unlike a sequential model of first a deal with the Palestinians and then a deal with the Arab states. No, we'll have to change the paradigm and accept parallel negotiations. We'll have to accept transitional outcomes, and we need to try and tie the bilateral, regional, state building together in a coordinated, if you like, roadmap. What this means in terms of a new international paradigm. First, don't go back to the old bilateral model. That would be the biggest mistake. Second, do not impose a solution. Third, accept that your new role in the region is to enable a process which is regionally led and international backed. Accept that your role is to convene, not necessarily to mediate. Accept that you need to tackle a major challenge and align with regional players whom you may not always like to work with. But for the sake of the two-state solution paradigm that we discuss in a regional package deal, you will have to deal with the pragmatic and conservative and stabilizing forces in the Middle East. You can create tremendous progress in helping track to developing this new thinking and new paradigms. You can support state building, but tie it to and make it as a condition to see mindset shifting and mindset building in terms of stopping incitements and spend dollars on building the Palestinian state, but also on building a Palestinian mindset. And finally, if according to this model, we need to work on unilateral steps as fallback, legitimize them because they were not at the account of reaching a solution. They were based on a major, sincere effort. All in all, we think that it is time to change the thinking about the product of the effort, no longer just a two-state solution, but a regional package deal. It is time to change the idea of who we work with, and that is both the Palestinians and the Arab states. And finally, it is a call for some realism about how we will climb this huge mountain and reach the top in steps and in careful planning. The models that we are describing here are not a product of some academic thinking. They are a product of thousands of hours of discussions with Palestinians and regional players who are acutely interested in finding a way for a two-state solution and a regional package deal because of the shared interest, because of the shared concerns, and because of the fact that we need to create a very different horizon, both in terms of security and economic development. Thank you.